A lot can happen in a year, not in the fake way people say it when they are trying to make themselves feel better. A real year, used properly, can take a man who feels scattered, weak, anxious, undisciplined, distracted, and half-dead inside his own routine, and turn him into someone with a different mind behind his eyes. That sounds dramatic until you understand what a year actually is. It is not one giant block of time. It is hundreds of chances to feed the same part of yourself until that part becomes stronger than the old pattern. 12 months of the wrong input can make you worse. 12 months of the right input can rebuild the operating system. The tragedy is that people keep waiting for some emotional rebirth while their daily routine is already rewiring them in the direction of weakness. The brain you have right now is not innocent. It has been trained. Every urge that feels natural, every distraction that feels irresistible, every fear that rises too quickly, every lazy escape that seems automatic, all of it has been practiced in some form. Maybe not deliberately. Maybe no one sat down and chose to become distracted, reactive, anxious, addicted to noise, or allergic to effort. It still happened through repetition. The mind learns what receives your attention. Give the morning to the phone often enough, and the phone becomes the mind's first master. Run from silence often enough, and silence begins to feel like danger. Use fantasy every time reality feels heavy, and the brain learns to leave the room whenever the real work arrives. Nothing about this is mystical. The brain adapts to the life you keep handing it. Michael Merzenich's work on neuroplasticity matters because it destroys the excuse that adulthood means fixed wiring. For a long time, people spoke about the adult brain like it had already set into concrete, as if childhood wrote the script and the rest of life was just performance. The research told a colder story. Adult brains keep changing under repeated demand. A person who practices piano does not only get better at moving fingers over keys, the brain starts giving more space, more sensitivity, more command to the movements and sounds being repeated. A person learning another language is not merely collecting vocabulary. The mind is forced to make new routes for sound, meaning, memory, and expression. A year of deliberate practice does not just change what you can do. It changes the organ doing it. That should make a man uncomfortable, because the same rule works in both directions. If practice can build the mind, careless repetition can damage it. A man who spends a year feeding outrage will not simply watch some content. He will become quicker to anger. A man who spends a year chasing cheap pleasure will not merely relax. He will make ordinary life feel dull by comparison. A man who spends a year avoiding hard conversations will not remain neutral. He will become easier to silence. The nervous system does not care whether the pattern is noble. It only cares that the pattern is repeated. The body keeps score without asking for your opinion. That is why a year should frighten you. It is long enough to build strength and long enough to install a deeper weakness. Meditation is a good example because it looks almost too simple from the outside. A person sits down, breathes, notices the mind wandering, and brings it back. Nothing heroic, nothing that looks powerful to a crowd. Yet repeated long enough, that act changes the relationship between attention and reaction. The mind learns that every thought does not deserve obedience. Fear can rise without becoming an order. Anger can arrive without getting the keys to the mouth. Restlessness can shout without being handed the body. This is not softness. This is command training. The man who cannot sit with his own mind for 10 minutes has no business pretending he is fully free. A year of that practice done seriously can make the inner world less chaotic. Not perfect, less ruled by every passing signal. Now apply the same principle to the life you actually want. If you want focus, you cannot keep living like attention is spare change. You need a daily stretch where nothing enters the room except the work. If you want a stronger body, the body needs repeated proof through training, food, sleep, and restraint. If money is the problem, the brain must spend time with value, numbers, skill, selling, saving, and uncomfortable honesty. If confidence is the wound, you need controlled exposure to the rooms, conversations, and attempts that currently make your chest tighten. Vague desire will not rewire anything. The brain needs a specific signal, repeated, protected, made physical. Saying, "I want to change" is not enough. Change begins when the day starts giving the brain different instructions. The first weeks will feel ugly, and that ugliness fools people. They expect the correct path to feel natural quickly. It usually does not. The old pattern has had years to become smooth. The new pattern arrives like a foreign language inside the body. Reading feels slow because the mind wants stimulation. Training feels heavy because the body is used to being negotiated with. Deep work feels almost offensive because distraction has been treated like a basic right. Prayer can feel dry. Silence can feel empty. Study can feel humiliating. None of that proves you are on the wrong road. It proves the old wiring is still alive. A serious man does not panic because the old self complains. He expected it. He keeps giving the new pattern enough repetitions to earn authority. Time is dangerous because it does not feel violent while it is taking from you. Nobody feels 10 years leave in one clean wound. It goes quietly, through evenings you thought were harmless, mornings you moved through without urgency, plans you kept calling soon, and promises you delayed because the day did not look important enough to defend. If a decade was taken from your life in one moment, you would understand the crime immediately. The body would know something had been stolen. But time is more patient than any thief. It takes from you in pieces small enough to excuse, and by the time the loss has a shape, it no longer looks like an attack. It looks like your normal life. That is why people underestimate it. They expect destruction to feel dramatic. Time does not need drama. It only needs you to keep believing that another day can be wasted without consequence. The only part of life that can actually be used is the present, and that truth is so simple people treat it like it cannot be serious. Yesterday can teach you, shame you, strengthen you, or haunt you, but it cannot be edited by force. Tomorrow can guide your aim, scare you into preparation, or remind you that the road is shorter than it appears, but it cannot be touched yet. This hour is different. It has weight. You can train inside it. You can write inside it. You can make the call, send the message, clean the room, save the money, refuse the habit, begin the skill, face the person, or correct the direction while something is still alive enough to answer. That makes the present less poetic than people want it to be, but far more powerful. It is not a concept. It is the only piece of time with a handle on it. Delay feels harmless because it rarely asks for payment on the same day. That is how it gets away with so much. A man skips the thing he promised himself, and the sky does not fall. He avoids the difficult task, and dinner still tastes the same. He puts the project aside for another week, and nobody comes to arrest him. This teaches the wrong lesson. The mind begins to think postponement has no cost, because the cost has not arrived yet. In reality, the bill is being written slowly. A habit hardens, courage loses a little blood, the body becomes less responsive. The skill stays foreign. The dream becomes harder to believe because it has gone too long without proof. Nothing collapses at once, which makes the collapse easier to miss. Delay is not empty space between intention and action. It is a force that changes the man who keeps choosing it. The world also changes while you are waiting, and it does not ask whether your confidence has arrived. Tools evolve, industries shift, attention moves elsewhere, doors close quietly. People who started badly become experienced, and the field you kept planning to enter becomes less forgiving. This is one of the coldest parts of waiting. You do not return to the same opportunity you postponed. You return older, with more fear around the attempt. While the ground itself may have moved, the market does not pause. The body does not pause. Other people's hunger does not pause. Your own belief does not pause either. It weakens when ignored for too long. A dream you keep delaying starts losing authority over you. It becomes something you talk about, not something that commands you. Once that happens, the danger is no longer outside. The danger is that you have trained yourself to live without the thing you claim you want. Fear is rarely honest enough to call itself fear. It prefers cleaner language. It may tell you to be realistic, to wait for better timing, to protect your peace, to prepare more, to avoid rushing, to think things through properly. Sometimes that advice is wise, and a reckless man can destroy himself by mistaking motion for courage. But fear knows how to imitate wisdom. That is why a man must judge waiting by what it produces. If the waiting has built skill, saved money, strengthened the body, sharpened the plan, improved discipline, or created a real position from which to move, then perhaps it served. If it only preserved the same routine while giving you better explanations, then it was not strategy. It was comfort with a serious voice. The test is not how intelligent the excuse sounds. The test is whether the delay made you more capable or merely more comfortable with not moving. Action has a quality thought can never replace. It gives feedback. A first attempt, even a poor one, tells you something real. The body answers when you train. The page answers when you write. The market answers when you make an offer. A difficult conversation answers when you finally stop rehearsing it and speak. Until then, the mind can build endless private worlds where everything remains possible because nothing has been tested. That is a dangerous luxury. Untested dreams stay clean because reality has not touched them yet. A man may protect his self-image by delaying, but he also protects his ignorance. He does not learn where he is weak, where the leverage sits, what actually matters, who responds, what needs correction, or which fear was exaggerated. Movement breaks the fantasy open. It may bruise the ego, but it gives the future material to work with. The mind naturally favors present relief over future dignity. This is not an insult. It is a fact a man must govern. The discomfort of starting is immediate, while the regret of not starting waits politely in the distance. The embarrassment of being a beginner is immediate, while the grief of wasted years arrives later with a heavier hand. The effort of discipline asks for payment now, while the reward often speaks softly at first. That imbalance fools people. They keep choosing the smaller comfort because it is close enough to touch. Then years later they meet the larger pain built from all those small escapes. A man who wants command over his life must learn to feel future consequences before they become visible. He must make regret real enough in his mind that a lazy evening no longer looks cheap. What feels cheap today may cost a decade if repeated. 1 hour today can change the direction, even if it cannot change the whole life immediately. that should not be dismissed. A life is often rescued by an adjustment, too small to impress the ego at first. A focused hour on a skill begins changing the relationship between the man and the craft. A single workout, handled seriously, reminds the body that command still exists. A clear look at money can end months of vague financial anxiety. One honest conversation can stop resentment from becoming part of the walls. The first public attempt can teach more than months of private planning. None of this needs to look grand. In fact, the grand feeling is often what weak people chase to avoid the plain act. Direction compounds. When the angle changes and stays changed, time begins carrying you somewhere else. That is why the small correction matters. You measure your years by the wrong thing entirely. Did you hit the target, make the money, reach the milestone? And if you did, you call it a good year, and if you did not, you call it wasted. This scorecard rules how you feel about your own life, reducing 12 months of living to a single question of whether you got the thing. But something enormous is missing from that accounting, something that matters far more than whether the goal was reached, and because you never track it, you never see the real result of your year, only the surface number that tells you almost nothing about what actually happened to you. The goal you chase is temporary, and this is the part you keep forgetting. You hit the target and the satisfaction fades within weeks, the achievement absorbed into your normal life, the thing you wanted so badly becoming just another fact about you. The money gets spent or saved and stops feeling like a victory. The milestone passes into the background. Whatever you were chasing, once caught, loses the glow that made it seem like the point of everything, and you find yourself already looking toward the next target, the last one strangely empty now that it is yours. The prize was never as permanent as the pursuit made it feel. Something else happens during that year, though something you barely register while it occurs. As you chase the goal, you are being changed by the chasing, the discipline you build to pursue it, the setbacks that force you to grow, the skills you develop, the fears you face, the person you slowly become through the daily effort of reaching for something hard. This transformation happens quietly, beneath your attention, while you stare at the target and ignore the man being forged in the pursuit of it. And unlike the goal which fades, this transformation stays, becoming a permanent part of who you are, carried forward into every year that follows. The ancient Stoic philosophers understood a version of this, and it reshapes how you should see every goal you chase. They taught that we do not control outcomes, only our efforts, and so the wise man focuses not on whether he achieves the external result, but on who he is being in the pursuit of it. The outcome depends on luck, on circumstances, on 1,000 factors beyond your control, and can be snatched away regardless of how hard you work. But the character you build through the effort, the virtue you develop, the person you become, that is entirely yours, unable to be taken by any misfortune. The Stoics measured a life not by what it obtained, but by who the person became in the striving. Here is why this distinction matters more than it sounds. If the goal is the only point, then a year where you worked hard and fell short is a failure, a waste, 12 months lost. But if the person you become is the real product, then that same year, the one where you missed the target, might have been the most valuable year of your life because of who you became while trying. The failed pursuit that forged your discipline, taught you resilience, and transformed your character, produced something far more lasting than the goal would have. The outcome was lost. The transformation was kept, and the transformation was always worth more. Two men can chase the identical goal and reach it, yet end the year as completely different people. One takes shortcuts, avoids the hard parts, games the system, and gets the result without being changed by it, arriving at the target the same small person who started. The other faces every difficulty head-on, refuses to cut corners, and is transformed by the demands of the pursuit, arriving at the same target as a fundamentally stronger man. They have the same achievement on paper, but one gained only the goal, which fades, while the other gained the goal and a new self which lasts. The difference between them is invisible on the scorecard and everything in reality. This reframing changes how you should approach the difficulty of any pursuit. When the work gets hard, when the setbacks pile up, when the goal seems to slip away, your instinct is to see all of it as an obstacle between you and the prize, a frustrating delay. But the difficulty is not in the way of the real product. The difficulty is producing the real product. The struggle that feels like it is stopping you from reaching your goal is the exact thing forging you into a stronger person, which means the hardest parts of the pursuit are the most valuable, the moments doing the most to build the man you are becoming. Your mind spins for hours and your body never moves. You lie awake planning, analyzing, running scenarios, mapping out every possible version of the thing you want to do, and at the end of all that mental effort, you have done nothing at all. The thinking feels productive, feels like preparation, feels like you are getting somewhere. But days pass, then weeks, and the plan grows more elaborate while the action count stays at 0. You are trapped in your own head, generating endless thought about a thing you cannot seem to start, and you have never once asked why the thinking never converts into doing. The overthinking feels like a thinking problem, so you try to solve it with more thinking. You look for the perfect plan that will finally let you begin, the complete analysis that will resolve every doubt, the mental clarity that will make the first step obvious. And the harder you try to think your way out of the paralysis, the worse it gets, because you are feeding the exact thing that is trapping you. The mind, given more time to analyze, finds more angles to consider, more risks to weigh, more scenarios to game out, and the paralysis deepens with every hour you spend trying to think it away. The whole thing feels like a war between you and your own racing mind, a battle to quiet the thoughts and force clarity. You treat the overthinking as an enemy to defeat with willpower, as a mental glitch to fix through sheer effort of concentration. But you have the entire situation backwards, misunderstanding what the overthinking even is and where it comes from. It is not a thinking problem at all, and trying to solve it as one guarantees you stay stuck. Because the real cause lies somewhere you have not been looking, in a place the thinking will never reach. The truth is simple, and it will change how you see all of this. Overthinking is always the product of underdoing. The endless mental spinning is not a sign that you need to think more or plan better. It is a symptom of not having taken enough action, a void left by the absence of doing that the mind rushes in to fill with analysis. When you are not acting, the mind has nothing real to work with, no feedback from the actual world, so it manufactures endless hypotheticals instead, spinning theories in the vacuum where action should be. The overthinking is the mind idling, revving with nowhere to go, precisely because you have not put it in gear by doing something. This flips the entire solution on its head. You cannot think your way out of overthinking, because thinking is the activity that is trapping you. The only way out is through action, through doing the thing, because doing is what gives the mind real information to replace the hypotheticals it has been generating. The moment you take a step in the real world, you get actual feedback, real data about what works and what does not, and this real information does what infinite analysis never could. It quiets the mind, not by force, but by giving it the reality it was starving for. Action is the cure for overthinking, and thinking only ever makes it worse. Picture the difference between a man standing at the edge of a pool, analyzing the water, calculating the temperature, planning his perfect dive, growing more anxious with every passing minute, versus a man who simply jumps in. The first man's mind spins faster the longer he waits, inventing colder water and worse outcomes, paralyzed by his own analysis. The second man, the instant he hits the water, knows exactly what it is like, his questions answered by contact with reality rather than speculation about it. All the overthinking of the first man is resolved in a single second by the action of the second. The doing ended the spinning that no amount of thinking could. The reason action works so powerfully is that reality is always simpler than your mind makes it. In your head, the thing you want to do becomes a monster of complications, a tangle of risks and requirements and possible failures, each one multiplying as you analyze. But when you actually start, the real thing is almost always more straightforward than the mental version, the imagined complications either not existing or being easily handled as they arise. Your mind was complicating a process that reality keeps simple, and the only way to discover this is to step into reality and see for yourself how much smaller the actual thing is than the version your overthinking built. You have been complicating the process, and the complication is the trap.